Welcome to CineChat, your go-to podcast for all things movies and TV.
Oh, yeah.
This time we're taking a look back at the wild world of movies in 2024.
Okay.
We had soaring successes,
We did.
some baffling bombs,
Yeah.
and trends that have us wondering what's next for Hollywood.
It really does feel like a turning point, doesn't it?
It does.
We've got the rise of these legacy sequels,
Yeah.
the undeniable power of streaming, and then these smaller films trying to carve out their own space.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating landscape.
Okay, so let's start with the elephant, or maybe the giant emotion in the room.
Okay.
Inside Out 2.
Right.
I mean, $17 billion in the box office.
Yeah.
I was blown away.
Yeah.
What do you think was behind this mega success?
Sequels are always a gamble,
Yeah.
but this one hit on several levels.
Okay.
First, you have the built-in fan base from the original Inside Out,
Right.
but I think it went deeper than just nostalgia.
Wow.
This film tapped into something universal, especially after the past few years.
Yeah.
Those anxieties about growing up, facing new challenges,
Yeah.
feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It resonated on a global scale.
And let's not forget the power of Disney Plus pushing that marketing.
Right.
I swear I saw ads for Inside Out 2 everywhere I looked.
For sure.
But Pixar wasn't the only studio laughing all the way to the bank.
It wasn't.
Deadpool and Wolverine brought in a cool $1.3 billion.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I expected an R-rated superhero film to do that well.
Right.
Were you?
I have to admit, I was surprised too.
Really?
It challenges the old assumption that R-rated films have a niche audience.
Okay.
I think audiences are craving something a little different,
Yeah.
something that pushes boundaries. And let's face it, those two characters together are box office gold.
Definitely. They're both so irreverent and break the mold of your typical superhero.
Totally.
And speaking of breaking molds, let's talk about Despicable Me 4,
All right.
pulling in almost $1 billion.
Yeah.
Those Minions are like a global phenomenon, aren't they?
They are.
They've gone way beyond just the movies.
The Minions are fascinating.
I know.
They've become this cultural shorthand for silliness,
Yeah.
for that kind of universal slapstick humor that everyone can enjoy.
Yeah,
Think about it, they barely even speak English,
right.
but they're recognized worldwide.
It's true. I think my grandma even has a Minion sticker on her phone.
Exactly.
But 2024 wasn't all about familiar faces.
it wasn't.
We had a wave of sequels and reboots that really got people talking.
For sure.
Beetlejuice 2, for example, brought in a respectable $451 million.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I was a bit skeptical about that one.
Oh, really?
What did you think?
Legacy sequels are a risky business.
They are.
Sometimes they hit that sweet spot of nostalgia, but often they fall flat.
Right.
With Beetlejuice 2. I think they managed to capture the essence of the original
Yeah.
while still offering something new.
Okay.
Plus, you can't go wrong with Michael Keaton reprising his role.
Yeah.
He's iconic.
He really is. Speaking of legacy sequels, Moana 2 sailed into theaters and made $571 million.
Oh.
But I've heard some whispers that it wasn't the original sequel planned. Is there any truth to that?
Ah, yes. The mysterious world of studio scheduling and franchise planning.
Right.
I did hear rumors that there was another Moana project in the works,
Really?
but they decided to go with the sequel first.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what goes into those decisions, doesn't it?
It does.
What makes a studio prioritize one project over another?
I guess it all comes down to what they think will resonate with audiences at that particular moment.
Yeah, I think so.
And sometimes they get it right, and sometimes, well, we get Gladiator 2.
Yes. Not every legacy sequel is a winner, but I think Gladiator 2 highlights an important point.
Okay.
Sometimes it's best to leave well enough alone.
Right?
Some stories are perfect as they are,
Yeah.
and revisiting them can feel forced.
It's like trying to recreate a perfect dream.
Yeah.
It never quite lives up to the original.
That,
But before we get too lost in the flops,
okay.
let's celebrate another big win.
Right.
Dune Part 2 pulled in $714 million.
That's great.
I think people were really hungry for this one after that cliffhanger ending in the first film.
I think so.
Yeah.
Dune as a franchise has always had a dedicated fan base.
Yeah.
But this sequel managed to capture a wider audience, and I think it deserves the praise.
Yeah.
The visuals are stunning.
They are?
The world building is intricate,
It is.
and the performances are incredible.
Yeah.
It's a true cinematic experience.
And talk about raising the stakes.
Seriously.
It makes you wonder how they're going to top that in the next installment.
I know.
But speaking of sequels,
Yeah.
Kung Fu Panda 4 brought in $547 million.
Okay.
This one had a bit of controversy, though, didn't it?
It did.
With the missing Furious 5.
Yeah, it did spark some debate amongst fans.
It did?
I think it was a combination of budget constraints and creative choices that led to the absence of the original Furious 5. It's a reminder that even beloved franchises are subject to the realities of filmmaking.
It's always a bummer when a beloved cast can't fully reunite.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
like missing a key ingredient in your favorite recipe.
Right.
But hey, at least we still had Jack Black as Poe.
That's true.
You can't go wrong with that.
You can't.
Okay, so we've talked about sequels that soared and sequels that stumbled.
Right.
But what about reboots?
Okay.
Venom. The Last Dance brought in $472 million,
Yeah.
making it the least successful of the Venom trilogy.
Mhm.
Why do you think it lost some steam?
There are a few factors at play here.
Okay.
You have the ongoing trend of declining theater attendance competition from streaming services.
Right.
And perhaps even superhero fatigue.
Okay.
Maybe Venom. The Last Dance didn't offer enough to distinguish itself from the pack.
It's true. Audiences are becoming more discerning.
Yeah.
They want something fresh,
Mhm.
something
Yeah.
that pushes the boundaries.
Right.
And speaking of pushing boundaries, let's talk about Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire.
Okay.
This monster mashup roared its way to $571 million.
Right.
I have to admit, I'm a sucker for these giant monster movies.
Yeah.
Are you?
I can't resist a good monster movie.
Oh, yeah.
They offer pure escapism.
They do?
A chance to witness epic battles on a scale that's hard to imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a primal fascination with these creatures.
Yeah.
These forces of nature that we can't control.
It's like our inner child wants to see those iconic monsters clash on the big screen.
Totally.
And let's face it, sometimes you just want to turn off your brain and watch a giant lizard fight a giant ape.
Yeah, sometimes pure spectacle is exactly what we need.
It is.
But let's shift gears for a moment
Yeah.
and talk about a film that took a more introspective approach.
Right.
Dune Part 2.
Okay.
This continuation of Denis Villeneuve's sci-fi epic brought in a respectable $714 million,
It did.
proving that audiences are still willing to engage with complex narratives.
I was so impressed by Dune Part 2.
It's really good.
It managed to balance those philosophical themes with some truly thrilling action sequences.
Right.
It's a film that rewards repeated viewings.
Yeah.
And I think it'll have a long shelf life.
It's a modern classic, in my opinion.
I think so.
And it proves that audiences are hungry for intelligent, thought-provoking cinema.
Yeah.
It's not always about explosions and car chases.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about the ideas,
Mhm.
the questions that a film raises.
And Dune Part 2 certainly gave us a lot to think about.
A lot to think about.
Okay, so we've talked about sci-fi epics, monster mayhem, and superhero showdowns.
We have.
But let's not forget about the animated adventures that captured our hearts in 2024.
Right.
We already mentioned Inside Out 2 and its record-breaking success.
We did.
But Despicable Me 4 also continued the franchise's winning streak,
It did.
bringing in just under $1 billion.
Yeah.
Those minions just keep on delivering, don't
They
they?
do.
They do.
The Despicable Me films have found a formula that works.
Right.
And they've stuck with it.
They have.
Lovable villains,
Yeah.
adorable minions,
Mm-hmm.
and a healthy dose of slapstick humor.
Right.
It's a recipe for family-friendly entertainment that continues to resonate with audiences worldwide.
It's like comfort food for the soul.
It is.
But enough about the hits for a moment.
Right.
Let's talk about some of the films that didn't quite live up to expectations.
Go ahead.
Gladiator 2, for instance, brought in decent numbers,
It did.
but many critics felt it lacked the heart and intensity of the original.
Right.
What do you think went wrong?
I think Gladiator 2 suffered from the weight of expectations.
Okay.
The original was such a phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to recapture that magic. Plus,
Yeah.
you're missing that key ingredient,
Uh-huh.
Russell Crowe's performance.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine anyone else filling those sandals.
You're so right. He brought such gravitas to that role.
He did.
It's like trying to make a sequel to Casablanca without Humphrey Bogart.
Right.
It just wouldn't be the same. But Gladiator 2 wasn't the only sequel that faced challenges.
No.
Twisters, the long-awaited follow-up to the 1996 disaster flick,
Yeah.
just didn't seem to generate much buzz.
Right.
Did it just get lost in the shuffle?
I think Twisters might have suffered from a lack of originality.
Okay.
We've seen so many disaster movies over the years.
We have.
And Twisters didn't really offer anything new or unexpected. It
Yeah.
felt like a rehash of familiar tropes.
It's like they just dialed up the special effects and hoped for the best.
Right.
But speaking of sequels that maybe should have stayed in the vault,
Okay.
Bad Boys 4 also went reformed.
Yeah.
Do you think audiences are just tired of Will Smith and Martin Lawrence at this point?
I wouldn't say audiences are tired of them,
Oh, okay.
but the Bad Boys franchise has been around for a while.
It has.
And let's face it, Will Smith has had some ups and downs in recent years.
He has.
Maybe audiences just weren't feeling the need for another Bad Boys adventure.
Maybe they're waiting for the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion tour instead.
Uh-huh.
But you know, while these big budget sequels were struggling,
Yeah.
the horror genre continued to thrive.
It did.
Alien,
Mm.
Romulus,
Yeah.
Heretic, A Quiet Place,
Mm.
The Shushing Smile.
Yeah.
They all delivered some serious scares.
For sure.
Why do you think horror is such a consistent performer at the box office?
Horror is a genre that taps into our primal fears, our need to confront the unknown.
Okay.
And it's a genre that can be incredibly effective on a smaller budget.
Right.
You don't need big stars or expensive special effects to create a truly terrifying experience.
Okay.
A well-crafted story,
Right.
a creepy atmosphere,
Yeah.
and a few jump scares can go a long way.
And let's be honest, sometimes it's just fun to be scared.
It is.
It's like a roller coaster for your emotions.
Right.
You know, you're safe, but your heart is still racing.
Totally.
But enough about the big studios and the familiar franchises.
Okay.
Let's talk about some of the smaller films that made a splash in 2024.
All right.
Monkey Man, for example, managed to stand out in a crowded field.
It's-
I was really impressed by Dev Patel's performance in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monkey Man is a great example of a film that succeeds on the strength of its story and its performances.
Okay.
It's a reminder that you don't need a massive budget or a well-known IP to create a compelling film.
You don't?
Sometimes all you need is a talented filmmaker with a vision and a story to tell.
It's like a breath of fresh air, isn't it?
It is.
It reminds you that there are still original stories out there waiting to be discovered.
That's right. That's right.
But okay, we've talked about the hits.
Yeah.
We've talked about the misses now. Let's dive into some of the bigger trends that emerged in 2024.
Okay.
One that really struck me was the rise of these legacy sequels.
Right.
We've already discussed Beetlejuice 2,
Yeah.
Moana 2,
Mhm.
Gladiator 2,
Yeah.
but there were others. Venom, The Last Dance,
Yeah.
Twisters,
Yeah.
even Bad Boys 4.
Right.
Why do you think studios are so obsessed with revisiting these old franchises?
Nostalgia is a powerful force
Yeah.
in a world that feels increasingly uncertain and chaotic.
Right. There's a comfort in revisiting familiar worlds and characters.
There is.
It's like putting on a warm blanket on a cold night.
I like that.
And for studios, legacy sequels are a relatively safe bet.
Right.
They have built-in brand recognition and a pre-existing fan base.
They do.
It's less risky than trying to launch something entirely new.
It's like the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
But sometimes I think these legacy sequels are more about cashing in on a familiar name than about telling a truly compelling story. What do you think?
I agree. There's a fine line between honoring a legacy and simply exploiting it.
There is.
The most successful legacy sequels manage to strike a balance between the old and the new.
Yeah.
They offer a fresh perspective while still staying true to the spirit of the original.
It's like renovating a historic building.
Right.
You want to preserve its character while still updating it for modern times.
Exactly.
But legacy sequels aren't the only trend shaping the movie industry.
Right.
We also have to talk about the elephant in the room.
Streaming? How is the rise of platforms like Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime Video impacting the way films are made and released?
Streaming has completely changed the game.
Yeah.
It's given filmmakers more creative freedom,
Okay.
allowing them to tell stories that might not have found a home in the traditional studio system.
Right.
And it's given audiences more choices than ever before.
It has.
We can watch anything we want,
Yeah.
whenever we want,
Yeah.
from the comfort of our own home.
It's like having a movie theater in your living room.
It is.
But I do worry that streaming is contributing to the decline of the theatrical experience.
Yeah,
There's something special about seeing a film on the big screen,
there is.
surrounded by other people,
Right.
sharing that collective gasp or laugh.
I agree. There's a magic to the communal experience of watching a film in a theater that you just don't get at home.
Right.
But I think streaming and theatrical releases can coexist.
Yeah.
They each offer something different.
Maybe it's not a matter of one replacing the other, but of finding a way for both to thrive.
I think so.
It's like having a library and a bookstore.
Right.
They both serve a purpose,
Uh.
and they can both coexist peacefully.
They can.
But okay, enough about the business side of things.
Okay.
Let's get back to the movies themselves.
All right.
One thing I noticed in 2024 was a lack of truly groundbreaking blockbusters.
Uh-huh.
We had some big hits, sure,
Yeah.
but nothing that really pushed the boundaries of what's possible in cinema.
Right.
Do you agree?
I think it was a year of solid entertainment,
Okay.
but maybe not a year of groundbreaking innovation.
Okay.
Perhaps we're in a bit of a lull between major technological leaps,
Right.
but I think it's important to remember that not every film needs to reinvent the wheel.
Mm.
Sometimes a well-told story, well-acted, and beautifully shot is enough.
You're right.
Yeah,
Sometimes simplicity is best.
it is.
But speaking of pushing boundaries, one film that did try something different was Civil War. It was a bold choice to tackle such a divisive topic,
It was,
especially in today's climate.
right.
Do you think they pulled it off?
Civil War was certainly ambitious,
It was.
and it definitely sparked a lot of conversation, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah?
Whether it succeeded in its goals is up for debate.
Right.
Some critics felt it was too preachy,
Okay.
too heavy-handed in its message.
Yeah.
Others praised its willingness to tackle a difficult subject head-on.
It's like walking a tightrope, isn't it?
It is.
Trying to balance entertainment with social commentary.
Yeah,
It's not an easy feat.
it's not.
But, while Civil War was trying to make a statement,
Yeah,
there were plenty of other films that were just trying to entertain.
right.
And sometimes that's all we really need, right?
It is.
A good escape from the real world.
Absolutely. Sometimes we just need a good laugh, a good cry, a good thrill.
Yeah,
Movies can offer us all of that and more,
they can.
and that's what makes them so special.
Well said.
Hmm.
So, we've talked about the hits, the misses, the trends, the controversies, but now I want to hear from you, our listeners.
Yeah,
What movie stood out to you in 2024?
right.
What film made you laugh, made you cry, made you think?
Mm-hmm.
What movie will you be talking about for years to come?
Right.
Head over to our social media pages and let us know your thoughts.
We'd love to hear what resonated with you.
Yeah.
What films surprised you? What films disappointed you? What films left you wanting more?
And while you're thinking about your favorite films of 2024,
Okay.
let's take a quick break.
All right.
We'll be right back with more from the Deep Dive. All right, movie buffs. We're back for the final act of our 2024 Movie Deep Dive.
Yeah.
I'm already seeing some great comments rolling in about your favorite films of the year.
Great.
Keep those coming.
Yeah.
But before we get lost in the comment section,
Okay.
I want to touch on one more trend
Right.
that we haven't really discussed yet.
Okay.
And that's the power of actors and directors to draw an audience.
It's interesting, isn't it?
It is.
We live in an age where intellectual property reigns supreme. The superhero franchises, the reboots, the sequels.
Right.
But there's still this undeniable draw of a big name.
Yeah.
A director with a distinct vision,
Right.
or an actor who just commands the screen.
It's true.
It is.
Think about a director like Christopher Nolan.
Yeah,
His name alone can get people into theaters,
it can.
regardless of the subject matter.
Right.
Or an actor like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah,
He's got that movie star charisma that transcends any particular genre.
totally.
Do you think that kind of star power is becoming more or less important in today's Hollywood?
It's a tricky question.
Always.
On the one hand, you have these massive franchises
Yeah.
that rely more on the brand recognition than on any individual star.
Right.
But then you have films like Oppenheimer,
Yeah.
which was a critical and commercial success,
It was.
driven in part by the combination of Nolan's direction and Cillian Murphy's performance.
That's a great point. It's almost like there are two parallel tracks in Hollywood right now.
Right.
You have the spectacle-driven blockbusters,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have these more character-driven films
Yeah,
that still rely on that star power to cut through the noise.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah,
And it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out in the years to
it
come.
will.
Will the big franchises continue to dominate?
Right.
Or will we see a resurgence of these smaller, star-driven films?
Only time will tell.
I guess so.
But, as we wrap up our deep dive into 2024,
Okay.
one thing is clear.
What's that?
It was a year of contrasts.
It was.
We had record-breaking box office hauls alongside some surprising flops.
Right.
We saw the power of nostalgia battling against the desire for originality.
We did.
And we witnessed the ongoing evolution of the film industry
Right.
as streaming continues to disrupt the status quo.
It was a year that reminded us that the movie industry is a complex ecosystem,
It is.
constantly in flux.
It is.
And that's what makes it so fascinating to watch.
Well said.
Thanks.
So as we head into 2025,
Mhm.
let's raise a glass to the movies,
Cheers.
to the stories that transport us,
Yeah.
to the characters that stay with us,
Right.
and to the filmmakers who continue to push the boundaries of what's possible on screen.
Absolutely.
Here's to another year of cinematic adventures.
And on that note, we'll leave you with one final question to ponder.
Okay?
As you look back on the films of 2024, what trends do you think will continue to shape the future of cinema?
Interesting.
Let us know in the comments, and thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the wild world of movies.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the topics that matter to you. Until next time,
Yeah.
keep watching
Keep thinking.
and keep the conversation going.
See you next time.